Welcome to Cybermania, Cyber Talks with the brightest minds in cybersecurity. Discussing risks, AI, emerging threats, workforce challenges, and more. Brought to you by Cyber Range Solutions. With your host, May Brooks.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cybermania. And today we're going to unpack the cyber talent paradox with the Dubai cyber guy, Barry Martin. How are you, Barry?
Good. How are you?
I like that title. Do you like that title?
The Dubai cyber guy. Yeah. I should came up with it myself.
Yeah, I know. I really like it. But the problem is it's only Dubai. What about Abu Dhabi? I feel left out.
Yeah, well, the Dubai and Abu Dhabi cyber guy just didn't quite have the same ring to it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. So, I always start these episodes in the same way, with you introducing yourself. Who are you? What do you do in life? And then we'll dive into more bits and pieces.
Well, you've given me such a nice introduction already. So, it's my LinkedIn URL actually, and there's a funny story behind how that came about, which I'll save for another day. But as you've already mentioned, I am the Dubai cyber guy. I'm a cybersecurity recruiter based here in Dubai, although don't only focus on Dubai. I do recruitment across the GCC, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait as well as having done recruitment a bit further afield into Europe as well as the Americas.
Beautiful. So let's dive into a little bit about the behind the scenes. And I want to ask you, what motivated you to focus your recruitment efforts specifically, first of all, to specifically recruit for cybersecurity? Let's start with that.
Well, it's and anybody who goes and has a look at my LinkedIn profile will see quite a journey career-wise. So I think I had my first real exposure to cybersecurity when I was a kid in high school, doing computer sciences as an elective subject during matric. Built my own computer, started getting into, breaking things and understanding how certain bits of software work. I'm sure all of us did this at some point, was like hacking Winamp. I don't know if you ever had Winamp. And you've got all of the mods and the different VFXs that you could build, so some low-level
skins.
coding. The skins that you could modify yourself. So that was really low-level stuff. And then in university, did information systems and technology management as a subject for a while. And then I kind of went off into sales post university. Sold insurance. Sold photographic equipment and print for a while. And then I was lucky enough to stumble back into the tech space with Symantec, and again was in sales there. I was a key account manager for them for a while, for continental US and Canada, for SSL and web security. So that's kind of where I got a proper taste of cybersecurity, and it was a very, very small piece of the pie. I've always been a people's person, and so having done a bit of HR in university as well, when I was thinking about where I actually wanted to end up in my career, recruitment was broad on the horizon. So I moved into tech recruitment, with a hope that I would focus on cybersec. It wasn't really to be for the first year, and then I got an opportunity to come over here to the UAE, specifically to build the cybersecurity desk for a local recruitment company. And I did that for a couple of years. I went in-house for a while for a cybersecurity startup. That was fun. Got to see behind the veil for a bit. And I'm back in agency, still recruiting for cyber. I don't see myself ever moving away from it. I love it too much. I love the industry. I love the different roles. The intricacies of it as well. It's always changing. So, for somebody like me with ADHD, that change and that excitement is necessary, right? So I think I'm stuck. Yeah. This is it for me for the rest of my life. I'm just going to be a cybersecurity recruiter. I dig it.
Amazing. So, you know what? If cybersecurity is your field, so why the UAE? Why the Middle East or GCC area?
Yeah, so my family's got a bit of a history with the UAE. Both of my parents had worked here at some point. I'd visited when I was a kid, and so when the opportunity came up to relocate here from South Africa, I jumped on it. And I've really fell in love with the region over the last, I think, close to 6 years that I've been here now. It's really home. And the thing I love about the Middle East is the kind of can-do attitude. There's a big sky thinking culture here where it's no idea is outlandish enough, right, or too outlandish. Anything can be possible, So
let's build the tallest building in the world.
Exactly, for no real reason other than it needs to be built, right? We need to do it. Wait, if not us, then who? And I dig that. I'm an eternal optimist, and I like that sense of optimism that floats around the region. It kind of permeates the culture.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so let's dive into the cybersecurity workforce world, and I want to hear a little bit about your perspective of the current state of, let's call it, cybersecurity talent, both locally here in the UAE and globally, because you see a lot of people from different parts of the world.
Yeah. So, do you want to address kind of like the global talent shortage that a lot of people talk about, or?
Well, that's definitely
different aspects to this that we could go down.
You decide. It's your angle.
I think we've got access to a world-class supply of cybersecurity talent here. The UAE being what it is, it's a destination of choice for a lot of skilled workers globally. Over the last couple of years, the UAE government has been very proactive in terms of investing in tech, nurturing a startup culture. We've got a couple of really big startups that have emerged in the region and have helped to drive that tech scene. There's also a healthy appetite for technology adoption in the region, which has really made us a testing bed for companies wanting to explore the Middle East as a revenue generating area, right? Come to the UAE, figure things out here, then expand into KSA, expand into Qatar, expand into Bahrain and Kuwait. So there's loads of opportunity, and it draws people from all over the world. So for me as a recruiter, if we can't find the talent locally, which happens occasionally, we've got some fantastic people in the region, but sometimes you have to go outside the borders. It makes it a really easy sell. Hey, I've got an opportunity for you in Dubai, and now KSA as well is turning into the next destination of choice for tech talent.
Yeah, so you think that people are choosing KSA and maybe in the future Bahrain, Kuwait, because I come from Israel. Obviously, there's for us, the first time that people told me, I remember the first person I knew that moved to the UAE is your fault, my good friend Ellie. It's definitely your fault because
I'll
dragged me here. Yeah. So when Ellie first told me I'm moving to Abu Dhabi, I was looking at him. You're doing what? Are we even allowed in? I mean, he was really one of the first. I arrived about 6 months after he did. And I think that it's, again, coming from my side of the pond, it's very different. I mean, when I told people we're relocating the entire family to the UAE, they looked at it a little bit funny. Do you find it different when you go to different areas to recruit people from different parts of the world? Are there parts of the world that are more happy to come here?
More receptive to it. Definitely. I think occasionally the UAE just gets lumped in with the whole of the Middle East, which, as we know, has some perceptions globally, which, gladly a lot of those have been broken, over the last couple of years, decades even, so it's definitely a region where there's loads of opportunity, where hard work pays off, you get out what you put in. It's very much a work hard, play hard environment. And the UAE is one of the safest countries in the world. Obviously being tax free, it's amazing for somebody who's got a good skill set to come here and make good money to take home and invest in their home country. Or if you want to settle here long term, that's a possibility now. So once you start unpacking that with people who may not have done the research, which these days is very rare. Yeah, a lot of people who travel will have heard of Dubai or transited through Dubai or Abu Dhabi. So there's less work going into that side of the candidate experience than I was doing 5-6 years ago when I first got here, and you were still talking to people going, no, I don't want to come to the Middle East because I have to, dress my wife from head to toe and, pick your stereotype, right? And I'm like, no, this is a first world region. It's fantastic here. That kind of stuff is falling by the wayside. So people are definitely more receptive. It just depends on how much exposure the UAE has had in their country, which I think as time goes on, everybody's going to know about the UAE and what it's like. And likewise, what KSA is like now. The kingdom is coming along in leaps and bounds. So much opportunity there, mega projects on the go. I'm actually heading over there in a couple of weeks to Black Hat. Really looking forward to seeing what Riyadh is like firsthand. I've relocated people there. I've not been myself. So, it's an exciting region. And I think once you explain that to people, they get it and they become really excited to get over here and make a life for themselves.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I've been here for over a year and I absolutely love it. I think, again, it has so many different opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about finding the right talent, because as a recruiter, you have your own little, maybe not so little, talent pool that you can dive into. But how do you increase that talent pool? How do you find new talent or the right person for a job?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that I've built up a good database over the last kind of 6 years, and these are people who I've actively worked with, people who I've connected with. I'll always go to people I know first. If I've got a position that has somebody's name written all over it, I go, I know the perfect person for the job. And the more you're in recruitment, the more that happens. But if I don't have access to the right person immediately, I'll start having a look at where their skill sets tend to be the most prevalent, and have on average the highest quality in that space. So, some regions are becoming known for malware analysis and reverse engineering, right? So I know that there's specific regions I can go to for that, and the guys from there are, and girls, women, are all fantastic, right? Really strong candidates. Other regions have really strong VAPT skill sets. Some regions have really strong SOC skill sets. So there are these little pockets globally of hot talent that I can go and fish from. And that's just time being spent in the industry, identifying those places geographically, and companies that tend to nurture good talent. Apology to anyone globally who I've poached from recently. It won't be the last time. I know.
Sorry, but I'm not sorry.
People, sorry, not sorry. If I can get somebody an exciting opportunity here, I've got to poach from somewhere, right?
Yeah. The majority of cybersecurity people don't quit and then wait for another job to come by. We get poached a lot. I think it's one of the benefits of being in this industry.
Yeah.
I think the last time I actually actively was looking for a job, like sending out my resumes and things like that, was probably when I left the IDF, like for my first paid position. That's about 20 years ago. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Unfortunately, it still happens, right? We've seen a lot of layoffs globally over the last couple of months. So, I unfortunately, I have had an influx of people, saying, "Hey, listen, I've lost my job. Can you help me?" And I do try where I can. But generally, it's a lot of head hunting. I think the market that we've seen this year is not the norm. We've had these mass layoffs. It's really been unfortunate for a lot of people.
Absolutely, I agree. You've seen throughout those 6 years and probably before as well, you've seen people move from role to role. Sometimes you help them move from role to role. And I want to get some piece of advice that you would give people when they build their career pathways. How would you advise them to do that?
Yeah. Well, I think and it's easier nowadays than it was probably when you and I were joining the workforce, between 17 and 20 years ago, where people were telling you, pick a job and stay there for a good few years, right? Loyalty is everything. Don't be seen to be too jumpy. I think particularly in cybersecurity, and you and I have discussed this previously, about figuring out where your personality is pointing you and where your skill set is pointing you in the industry, because it's so broad and there's so many different things that you can do, and different ways that you can apply yourself. How do you get access to all of that stuff, right? So somebody getting into the job market, if you have the luxury, do as many internships as you can, try and gain as much varied work experience as you can, even if you can afford it, if it's unpaid, go and do that, take that opportunity. I understand if you have to get paid for your work, you should get paid for your work, but make sure that you're getting your hands on as many different tools and getting into as many different skill sets as possible, so you can then start to point yourself in a specific direction, right? And then the first kind of 5 to 7 years of your career, if you move around about like 3, maybe 4 times, there's nothing wrong with that. Go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile. I would encourage you to. I've had my fair share of different opportunities, right? Trying to figure out where I fit and what I wanted to do. We talked about it earlier. So try different things and make sure you figure out where you fit and what you want to do. And then once you figure that out, really, really commit, so that, as you grow into that career from a junior to an intermediate to a senior, people looking at that history can go, okay, cool. As somebody starting out in the industry, they tried several things and then they started to drift off in this direction, which we see their career going, and that's the trajectory that they've followed since. And they've built themselves into a subject matter expert in that field, right? There's still always going to be a need for generalists, right? The world needs them. They need, jacks of all trades, pardon the outdated phrasing. But in cybersecurity, we need specialists, right? And the demand that I've seen over the last few years is definitely becoming more focused on niche specialists. People who are good at a very small band of things, and that's all they focus on. So that would be my advice, definitely. Play around in your early 20s, figure out what you want to do, and then really dial in, as you get on into something that you want to do for the rest of your life.
And how do you suggest people communicate that? If they decide to focus on something?
Yeah, I think CV writing is a lost art, and it's something that I do a lot with candidates, is trying to help them tell the story of where they've been and what they've done. A lot of people see a CV as just a list of places that they've worked and skills that they have, right? Which, on the face of it, yes, that's exactly what a CV should be. But you've also got to remember that when you are applying for a job, the first thing that most people see is that piece of paper, or nowadays a PDF or Word document that you stick in front of them, right? And while I love the school of thought that you can say it all in one page, most of us aren't Elon Musk with companies that we've started that we can just go, CEO of, invented PayPal, CEO of Tesla, CEO of Twitter, CEO of SpaceX. It doesn't work that much, right? So curate your resume to point in the direction that you want to go, right? If you want to do a certain thing, highlight the skills and experience that you have that points towards that thing. Tell that story. And I encourage people to have like an opening statement in their CV, just a little bit about them. This is what my career has been. This is where it started. This is where it's ended up, and why. And you can do that in about a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs, and then lean into your experience further on, starting with the most recent, ending with the furthest back, right? If you've been in the industry for 20 years, nobody wants to see that you were renting VHS tapes at Blockbuster when, they still had those as the first thing on your CV, right?
Yeah, and also keep it relevant. That's something that I also see. People tell me, wow, those are the only certifications you've ever had. No, those are the only certifications I want people to know that I have. I had all sorts of certifications over the years, but let's say when I did my, whatever it was called then with Microsoft, what was it called? MCSE, I did both. I think it was like NT4. No, maybe not that old, but almost. So it's not really relevant, nor am I going to be a system administrator now. I'm definitely too old. So keep it relevant. I can definitely relate.
And you can have, like a little asterisk, further certifications can be provided on request, or,
if it's
highlight
relevant,
the most
again.
recent experience and say, anything between 2000 and 2010. Ask me about that during an interview. I'd be happy to tell you, But
if you
beyond that,
switch
it's really-
careers, for example,
Yeah,
if your first career was in, I don't know, in marketing, and then you move to cybersecurity, that's great, but it's not necessarily relevant. I wouldn't hide it, but I'm not sure I would emphasize it. And you know what, you mentioned LinkedIn, and I know that when you grow and when you look for new talent, it's not always a matter of, as you said, it's headhunting. It's poaching. You need to find that talent. So what about LinkedIn? How useful do you find it?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a massive tool for us. I practically live on there. I'd say out of all of the social media platforms that I'm present on, I spend the most of my time on LinkedIn. And for people who are in the job market or want to get noticed, right? So we've got different kinds of candidates. We've got active candidates, and we've got passive candidates, and generally those are the two kind of hemispheres that people fall into. But then you've got passive candidates who are open to hearing from you, and passive candidates who are not open to hearing from you, right? They're in their job, they're happy, they most often don't have LinkedIn profiles because they're just like, I don't really want to hear from recruiters all day, every day. So if you're an active candidate and if you're a passive candidate that maybe wants to have a phone call from somebody like me occasionally, offering them an interesting position on the other side of the world, you've got to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date, with your most current skill sets, the things that you're actively working on. I've had people come to me directly as a referral. Beautiful CVs, super detailed, loads of different skills. Hop over to LinkedIn to make sure that I'm connected with them so that they're in my professional social network. And a lot of their skill sets are from when they were a sysadmin. I'm just thinking, I never would have found you if you hadn't come to me directly, right? So keeping that up to date and keeping it polished is really important if you want to stay relevant and keep getting those calls from recruiters. I know they can be annoying sometimes, but occasionally one of us pops up with something that you want to hear about. We won't find you unless you're up to date.
Yeah, unless you're up to date. And also, if you don't use LinkedIn, I think that LinkedIn, I always call it like you're starting a relationship with them. Now, when you start dating someone, you're not going to go out on a first date and then not call them for 3 weeks and then call them again. I mean, maybe you will, but I'm not sure you get a second date. So LinkedIn is like that.
Yeah.
So I think that LinkedIn is like a very insecure early relationship dating world. And if you don't treat it right, it's not going to treat you right. So I know that when I ignore my LinkedIn for a few weeks and then I post something that should have gone viral,
you get no traction
because he's mad at me. He doesn't like me. He feels insecure. He doesn't think that I love him anymore. LinkedIn, honestly, I do love you. I just don't have time for you. It's not you, it's me. But I really see people that tell me I want to switch to a new job, and sometimes they will even update their LinkedIn, but they never go there. Why would anyone find you? How would anyone find you? You have to be active. You have to share your experience, especially for people, from my experience, a bit more senior, people who want to be perceived as subject matter experts. That's one of our ways to stand out. At least that's how I see it.
Well, generally if we're reaching out to somebody, if I connect with you and you've got contact details on LinkedIn that you've made accessible to your contacts, I can then see if you've got a mobile number or an email, right, and reach out that way. If you're not present on LinkedIn a lot, that connection request may go ignored. So I will then try and use one of LinkedIn's other tools that sends you a message directly to your email inbox, which unfortunately most of the time ends up in spam, right? So unless you're lucky, that message may not get to you. Checking in on LinkedIn, especially if you're active, once every couple of days, or if you're not terribly active, once a week, once every 2 weeks, just as good housekeeping is probably the way to go.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I want to move from this to another topic that we also discussed quite a bit, and you even talked about it, I think, in JISEC, about retaining and attracting women in cybersecurity. And when I talk about women personally, obviously I'm a woman, so I have my own agenda, but I'm looking at diversity in general. It's not just men or women. It's also different backgrounds and everything. And I would love to hear your insights about the role of diversity in enriching the cybersecurity sector. Where do you find it more challenging, less challenging?
Yeah. I think, and this is a sentiment that most recruiters and hiring managers and people who work in STEM, right, will echo is that it's not the easiest thing to nurture and develop female talent in the space, right? And that's a grassroots thing. It's stuff that's not been made appealing for the female demographic in the past in most schools, right? Think back to when you and I were in school, potentially. Things like computer science and, actual science and engineering and, technology stuff was all kind of geared towards boys, right? And they, for whatever reason, the education system really fell on its bum, on that front, and didn't encourage more girls to get into the space. So, there's you are one of the few, from your generation who've made it to where you are as a woman in cybersecurity, right? And that's not an over-exaggeration. There's not a lot of people in your position globally, and not a lot of women in your position globally, and that's a historical thing. I think now, and I'm lucky that my mum is in teaching, so most of my life I've watched how the classroom experience has evolved. This stuff is being made more accessible for everyone, right? It doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what your gender is. This stuff is accessible to you. Here are the tools, and technology is kind of leveling that playing field as well. So we're seeing a crop of young talent come through that's pretty diverse, in terms of gender, in terms of ethnicity. Load is being done globally on that front. And it's really important for employers to keep that in mind when they go out and hire, right? It's the easy thing would be to take the first 15 or 20 good candidates that come your way, interview them and hire from that batch, right? Those first 15 or 20, historically, statistically speaking, may all be male, right? You then have to go, if you've got a diversity and inclusion agenda, you've got to sit back and be conscious of this. And I've spoken about this in JISEC as well, which is what you picked up on. Being intentional about this stuff is what separates good employers from bad employers on the diversity and inclusion front, right? Employers that go, we want to give more opportunities to women, well, then you need to make sure that your screening pool is pretty evenly divided, 50-50 straight down the middle, right? If you want to be, by the numbers, we give the same opportunities to men as we do to women. If you're just taking the first batch of CVs that come along and it's 80-90% males or 100% males, you're not going to meet those goals. You need to slow down and intentionally look through all of it, because you see it all the time on LinkedIn with these job posts. Something's posted up, there's 500 to 1,000 applicants, and speaking as somebody who has to go through a lot of applications on a regular basis, it's very easy just to fall into the trap of, well, let's look at hitting my target based on the first X that I go through. If it's 15 or 20 and I get 10 good candidates out of that, yippee, and off I go, right? There's time pressure, I'm under deadlines. Or I sit back and I go, okay, cool, I'm going to go through and filter these, and there's tools that you can use, to screen and filter down and get a condensed talent pool from that. Okay, I'm going to give the same opportunity to guys as I am to women.
Well, I have to tell you that I have a problem with that as a woman in cyber. I don't want anyone to give me an opportunity, whether it's a new job, a speaking engagement, anything. Honestly, I don't want them to give it to me only because I'm a woman.
No, that wouldn't be the intention either, right? But, knowing what you know about the fact that you are call it 1 in 100, right? If you've got, and to use this analogy, if you've got a jar full of marbles, you've got 100 marbles, right? All of them are blue, one of them is red. When you dip your hand into that jar of marbles and pull out 10, what are the odds that you'll get the red one?
Yeah, one.
Right, so you have to go looking for that red one if you want the red one specifically, but you have to follow the same hiring processes in terms of merit. It's about making sure that the opportunity is there for somebody to demonstrate their abilities. If women are not getting access to those opportunities and not being able to demonstrate their abilities in those interviews, they're never going to be selected into those positions. And that's just it's a numbers thing. It's the reality of the number of men in STEM careers versus women in STEM careers. Yeah. And there needs to be intentional stuff that's done to help catch up and level the playing field. But no, hires need to be made on merit at the end of the day. But you need an opportunity where a woman can prove that she's got the merit and she's got the goods, right? If you're not giving that opportunity, then what really are you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we know that women tend not to submit their CVs unless they tick all the boxes, unlike men that will take one box out of 10 and will still...
I'm perfect!
I'm perfect! This is the job for me! Yeah, so I think that even talking about it, even here, will make an impact, I hope. I try to talk about it with women, with younger girls, thinking about a career in STEM. I think that actually people are listening to us that are not located in the UAE will be surprised with the amount of women in STEM in general, not just cybersecurity, but in STEM. If you go to universities here, the majority of STEM graduates are women, which is amazing because they do rank them from an early age. So it's not just a matter of, I hear from a lot of people, no, women are more inclined to go to to other positions. No. When I went and I decided to do physics in high school, and I was one of the 2 girls there. We were 2 girls, 20 guys. So I was already used, by the time that I got to cybersecurity, I was used to being the only woman in the room.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's always easy being the only woman in the room. It's not always nice. So, that's...
Well, there was when you're encouraged in a certain direction, it's especially when you're young and malleable, it's very easy to just go with that flow and head in that direction. And again, like you say, a lot of graduates these days in the UAE in the STEM fields are females, which is fantastic. But that's because they haven't been encouraged away from that. They've been made to feel, this is an option for me. I can do this. And people are not going to look down their noses at me for being one of the only people here because it takes my fancy. So that's a big shift away from, when you and I grew up and were going through school.
Absolutely.
Speaking as a guy, I had every opportunity to do anything really as long as I was interested. So, it's amazing that things are shifting towards a more open and inclusive society, but we're not there yet. We still need to make some conscious efforts to fix that.
Yeah, and it's not just about women. I think it's diversity in general. It's people of determination. It's it's everything. It's people of color. It really is everything. And I think that if we are more inclusive, it will help us protect organizations better because the other side is very inclusive. Anyone can be a hacker if they're so inclined. Yeah. So that's just from my perspective as a CISO. I want to have people from different backgrounds, from different that have different ways of thinking because they'll make our team, in my eyes, much stronger. You know what? I want to talk about the future before we wrap this up. And I want to hear from you. Where do you see this industry going in the, let's say, 5 to 10 years mark, specifically around talent development, management, talent acquisition? Where do you see us going?
Cool. I'll try and keep this one short because my battery's dying, unfortunately. But no, talent acquisition is always going to be a complex one, right? And particularly as we enter an age where things are more and more automated, AI is becoming a talking point. People are looking towards how do we use AI to make things more efficient, and part of that is, how do we use this in the hiring process? How do we use it for screening? How do we use it to shape the employee's experience as well? And I think there's always going to be a drift towards that stuff in the short term, and in the long term we start coming back to people. In cybersecurity specifically, at the end of the day, is about people, right? It's people using the technology. It's how people interact with it. Ultimately, the victims of cybersecurity breaches and incidents are people. And I think the industry is very good at coming back to that. So, you hear a lot of buzz and a new piece of technology has come out and, AI's automated this and AI's making this difference here. And it very quickly, and you've seen this as well, I'm sure, over the last kind of 6 months that generative AI and all of that stuff has been a talking point. It very quickly comes back to people. Right, guys, let's not forget that these are people who are being hacked, whose data is being stolen. It's not a robot somewhere whose data has been stolen. Yes, occasionally a bit of software gets leaked, but somebody wrote that, somebody owns that. Most of the time it's people's credentials that are leaked online. So credit to the cybersecurity industry. As much as we're all very focused on technology and excited by it, and it's a tech-centric industry, is still very good at keeping it about people at the end of the day. So, talent is really the first focus, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of CISOs, a lot of senior people building out teams. What can you do? How can you do it? What is your enthusiasm behind it? Because it's people protecting people at the end of the day, when you boil it down.
Absolutely. Barry, thank you so much. Before we wrap this up, I always love to ask those little nugget-sized, bite-sized questions. So let's go through a very quick quiz. Outside your professional sphere, what life hack do you swear by to maintain sort of a work-life balance?
Oh, I'm the wrong person to ask that.
No, you have some. We talked about other things that you do to wind out.
One thing that I've done recently, and the verdict's still out on whether or not it's going to work, is separating my digital presence at work from my digital presence at home, so I can completely disconnect. We're living in a very interconnected age and a very interconnected society, and it's very easy to be always on with everyone. Speaking for myself, if a candidate or a client messages me after hours, my default setting is to try and respond, right? And then I start thinking about that stuff and I can't really switch off. So for me, it's important to break those two things apart and leave work at work and, have my personal life at home. So that would be the one life hack. We'll see if it works for me. I'm not the first to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let me know. Maybe I'll do it as well.
Learn to switch off, I think.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see. What's the most daring thing you've done recently that really pushed you outside your comfort zone?
Oh no, I'm so boring.
So everything is in the comfort zone.
Everything is in the comfort zone. It's very vanilla.
Or not vanilla.
I used to be very daring, and I've got the scars to prove it, and I think that's why I live in the comfort zone now. Outside of the comfort zone is sharp and pointy, and it hurts.
Yeah, sometimes, but it keeps us on edge, so I like it.
It's true.
Cool. Can you name someone that opened a door for you in your career when you really didn't expect them to?
Yeah, I'm actually working for him at the moment, a fellow by the name of Lloyd Creamer. He buzzed me up out of the blue when I was in South Africa. I'd only been in recruitment for, I think, 6 or 7 months when we started speaking. And he ultimately got me to the UAE, which is where I started building my career in cybersecurity recruitment. I worked for him at Salt. And now I'm working for him again at Hallion. So he's given me a couple of opportunities, and I continue to be grateful for that.
Amazing. And last but not least, probably my favorite question for everyone. If you could go back in time and give a younger Barry starting out in his career one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't stress so much.
Ooh.
Everything ends up being okay in the end, right? And I remind myself of this quite often as well, even today. Don't stress so much. Things are normally fine, or not as bad as you think they are.
Beautiful. I love the phrase, everything is figure outable.
Yes.
Figure out everything.
100%. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and worrying about it now is just making yourself suffer twice, right? So just stress less.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you, Barry, so much for being with me today. And I'll catch you all next time on Cyber Mania.